Have you ever noticed that throughout your entire life, you've been trained to outsource your authority and your experience and your intuition to other people? Whether it's a teacher, whether it is a professor, whether it is a doctor, priest, bishop, whomever, from as early as you can remember, other people always knew more, knew better, knew what was really true and what was really going to give you success and happiness other than yourself and what you felt inside and what you knew inside. Why is that? We're going to talk about that in this particular video. But first, what's up? My name is Dean Soto. I am the founder and founder of Prosulum. I am the founder of Prosulum, PROSULUM.com. And we are a virtual staffing agency. And if you've ever heard of outsourcing, if you've ever heard of a virtual assistant, if you even have heard of just hiring a remote employee, that's what we do. And not only do we do that, see, your typical remote employee, your typical virtual assistant, you give them a task and you tell them what to do, and what happens? They sometimes do it. They might ask you a ton of questions. They might get it right. Well, with a virtual systems architect, a VSA, as we call them in Prosulum, you give them a task, they document that task step by step. You spend the 5 minutes showing them how to do it, they document it, and then they do it. Boom, 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 30 tasks later. That's 30 tasks that you never, ever have to do ever again, okay? So if that sounds interesting to you, go check out prosulum.com. All right, so today's much more of a philosophical day. I feel like a philosophical day. No slideshows, no nothing. And this was a very painful, a very tough, a very difficult thing for me throughout my entire life, and it might be the same for you, is the idea that you have the answers within you and that you do not have to outsource your life, your success, your meaning, your happiness to others. Despite the fact that throughout your entire life, this has been the modus operandi. This has been the mode of operation. This has been how you have been sold success. Okay. So let me adjust this for a second. Now, there is a very, in my opinion, very good reason why people who are in power want to keep you away from yourself. In the big scheme of things, we are all one in some fashion or another. So when I say they, it's all part of the same thing. I'm not going to get into it. But if somebody wants to stay in power, they need you to realize that you are dependent on them. They need you to realize and feel like they are the ones who know more. They know better than you. They know you better than yourself. And that's where things get very dicey. That's where things get very difficult. Because who knows you more than you? Who knows your skill set more than you know your skill set? Who knows how to research, how to discover, how to grow, how to create better than you in your own unique way? So, growing up, I was always the dumb kid. I was the one who was made fun of. I was the one who did horrible in school. Horrible. Like from the very, very beginning. It was, I remember that when I was in first grade at one school, they didn't have these timed tests where you had to do addition or a subtraction that was timed. And I loved it because I could take my time, I could learn, I could do whatever. And then I moved later to a different school, and they loved doing these time tests. They loved doing these time tests. And I absolutely hated the times test. Not because I was slow, because it, to me, it was, I didn't like the fact that I was rushed. And I could do things quickly. I just didn't like being rushed. And so I would start not doing very well on these time tests. And that would start to demotivate me. And then I would get parent teacher conferences as to why is Dean not doing his work? Why is Dean lagging behind? Why is Dean, so on and so forth. There there is a thing within me that I I do not like to do things for other people if I'm not being listened to or heard. And there's a stubbornness that if I'm being seen in a certain way, I'll withdraw. I'll cut off. I'm not going to play that game. I don't know why that is. I just have this in me that I'm not going to even fight it. I'm just going to not do it. And throughout my entire career of being a student up until eighth grade, for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I'm going to show everyone that I could actually do this. I ended up getting straight A's. Then comes high school, one electronics teacher who did me dirty on a test and would not, even though I explained to him why I did a specific answer, I'm not going to go into it. It it was logically impossible for me to actually make a mistake on this test because of what I did, but he would not budge. And so I said, screw it. I'm not even going to do anything. I'm just done. And so once again, I was like, I'm not going to do it. I always had this feeling, though, that I knew how to do these things. I knew how to be successful. And as time went on, those started to come out. I started to listen to those more. I started to trust those more. Not always, because I was always told that these people knew better, whether it was a priest, whether it was a bishop, whether it was the pope, whether it was the teacher, whether it was the doctor, and so on and so forth. They always knew better. And I'm not knocking them because they're very useful. They've done their research. I'm not saying that they're not useful. But internally, I knew that I was on a path to something great. As time went on, the people who told me that I shouldn't go into the military, they were proud of me after I came out of the military. And then when I came out of the military, they told me that I should go back to school and that I don't need, like I should go to college. And I ended up knowing that I could get a job at Boeing Aerospace, which was my dream. It was literally like right across the street from where I grew up. And lo and behold, I was able to get a job there without a college degree, and they ended up paying for my college degree. So the same people who said, no, you need to go to college first, then said, oh, it's so good that you did this. Now they're paying for your college. Right? And then as time went on with Boeing, I started growing out of that, I wanted to start my own thing. What do you think they said? The people who were my authorities, whether it was grandparents, whether it was even people who were authorities at Boeing, people who, even some of the religious authorities, because it was a risk to me and my family to go and do this. They said, probably not a good idea, except for one psychologist, Dr. John, who was like, hey, if you're making enough money with your side business, you should do it. It's a need. And so thank you, Dr. John. I start my business, things start going well. And what did those people say who said I shouldn't do it? They said, "Oh, I'm so proud of that you had the courage to do that. It's so cool. I always believed in you." Right? And you're going to hear that every single time. Well, you might not hear it from everybody. Some people might actually not like the fact that you're successful, and that's just the way it is. But you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it in some fashion or another. So my point of this is, take what you have. Take right now what you want and what you know is yours. Don't wait. And I don't mean that you have to go and start doing things crazy, but start using your imagination. Start thinking at night. Imagine what it would be like. Imagine what it would be like to have your dream fulfilled. Imagine what it would be like to have your dream fulfilled. This is what successful people have always done throughout the ages. They take in their imagination, in their mind, because they know what's possible. They take it. They take it in their imagination. Jim Carrey writing himself, I think it was a $10 million check or a $1 million check or whatever, writing that check to himself and imagining himself depositing that check. And he ends up becoming one of the biggest comedians in the entire world, if not the biggest. Michael Jordan would constantly visualize. Every great athlete, every great business person would imagine themselves already doing what they wanted to do every night, every day, when they woke up, when they went to sleep. Because your subconscious doesn't know anything different. It's all within you, okay? Everything. These people who are out there who are very useful, professors and scientists and so on and so forth, they've done the research. They do not experience what you experience. And so while they are useful, they are not your authority. They are not you. You are the author. That's where this comes from. The author. You are the author of your ship. You are the author of your book. You're the captain of your ship. And so if you, when you start just Neville Goddard would call it appropriate the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you start taking what you know is yours in your mind and imagining yourself already having it and doing it, reality around you will start to make that happen. Reality around you will start to make that happen, whether it's something from the past or whether it's something that you want in the future. I was sharing with someone close to me that he had asked me, for some examples of how this has happened in my life. And I said, well, I'll give you one example. I was selling a rental property, and this rental property, and I think I've used this in another video at some point, but maybe not. I was selling this rental property, and in the city that it was in, you had to get what's called a certificate of occupancy. And that meant that the city inspector is going to come look at the place, and you're going to have to fix things in order to even get get it going, get it sold or whatever, right? And to have people live in it. And some inspectors are notorious. You have one little paint strip thing, you're not going to get it. Like maybe like one little chip off paint, they want you to paint that entire wall. Okay. Long and the short is that my realtor was like, yeah, we're going to have a couple of different things. They're all minor things. They're not habitation wise, but there's no way we're going to get through this and be able to sell it in time. And I said, okay, don't worry about it. Well, let's see what happens. And so that night I started to imagine him saying something different. I started to imagine him saying, yeah, we're all good. I can't believe the inspector passed it. And then I also imagined myself seeing the certificate of occupancy. And I did that for 2 nights. The third day, so the day after the second night I did this, I get an email from the city and it says certificate of occupancy. And I go and look at it and it's all good. I get a call from my realtor and he's like, Dean, how in the heck? He's like, it's as if the inspector didn't even go in. Like, I can't believe we got this. I don't know what happened. And I said, dude, don't worry about it. We're all good. That is how powerful your imagination is. When you visualize it, reality actually changes around you. And I know this is not fully a business thing, but I've had so many business successes. I've had so many people who have used this and their things have come true. Their imagination has taken what they wanted. And I've just seen so many things in my life where this has happened as well. And so you have to see that everything comes from within you. You've been trained all these years to look to somebody else for the answer to your problems. But in reality, it all stems from you. When you use your imagination, when you visualize, when you start, even if it doesn't have to be visual, it can be hearing something, feeling something, tasting something. It could be just a feeling of like, whoa, this is of it being fulfilled. This is so awesome. Your mind will start to make ways for that to happen. You'll meet the right people. Certain circumstances will start to happen. I've seen it over and over and over again. And so if I could stress one thing in this video, trust yourself. Start to love yourself. When I was Catholic, I used to, you always hear the Bible verse, love thy neighbor as yourself, right? And it made sense logically to me. But when I started to really, truly look inward, because Jesus Christ is inward, that's what the Bible says. Don't you realize that Jesus Christ is in you? That you're the temple of the living God? When I started looking inward, that's when things started to change. And I started to actually truly love myself and love my neighbor because they're just a reflection of what I feel about myself, right? They're just reflecting how I feel about myself and what I think about myself. So start to trust your authority in building your business, in your marketing ideas, in your outreach ideas, in how you grow your business, how you grow your family, how you grow everything. I know I talk about systemization and everything like that in this business, these videos, because that's my main business is outsourcing and automation. But deep down, you can only outsource and automate and have a business that runs without you when you truly believe that you deserve that. When you truly believe that you can build something like that. And when it aligns with you personally in how that works. So start just looking inward. What do you think your marketing should be? How do you think your business should run? How do you think, like, what works best for you so where you're in flow and you're not trying and burning out on all these different things? I get so many different emails and ideas and ways to market, and like I just used AI to create a marketing strategy for me, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for me. That doesn't flow. Like when I'm reading it, I'm like, that's not me. So then I go into my imagination and I start making sense of what makes sense for me, and then things start. There might be aspects of it that work. I don't know, that work for me, but what builds that flow? So all that being said, start trusting yourself, start loving yourself, start looking inward. You know right now exactly what you need to do. Take 10 minutes, 15 minutes just with yourself, seeing and imagining what you want. What would it be like if you had what you had at the very end? The more you do that, the more you'll start to see that that's exactly what will occur. And so start looking inward. Start believing in yourself, start loving yourself, start trusting yourself, and I will see you in the next video.